Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
These words by former President Dwight D. Eisenhower really ring true this morning. Quote, "There is nothing wrong with America that the faith, love of freedom, intelligence, and energy of her citizens cannot cure." How true. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a Patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance on a Wednesday morning. Good morning, good morning. Oh, thank you very much. The great voice of Kate Smith, and good morning on a wet Wednesday morning. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and some of our great advertisers, including Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Get your garbage picked up at 734-6969. Right now, without further ado, let's get our Pledge of Allegiance on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
You're the man.
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, Wheels. Thank you very much. And right now it's time for our weather forecast. And the weather brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design. You know, they just invite you to come on down and talk to them about maybe any home decor items or maybe rearranging things and sprucing things up. Believe me, they've got it all. Home decor, kitchen construction, carpet and flooring, whatever you need to make your house a home. They are the best. Cheney Flooring and Home Design at 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. Here now is Gina with the weather.
Looking out Zeb's window, here is your weather forecast. We do have a slight chance of rain and snow showers mixed for today, mostly cloudy skies and a little bit on the windy side. Out of the southeast, right around 5 miles an hour. Expect a high of 35, tonight low of 26. Now for Thursday and Friday, mostly it's going to be snowing, so be prepared for that. Make sure that you are planning your travel plans accordingly. Afternoon snow showers for Thursday, high of 32, overnight low of 26. Snow showers pretty much throughout the day on Friday. Accumulations of better than an inch. Winds picking up out of the west to about 11 miles an hour. High of 29 for Friday with an overnight low of 22. And then as we make our way into the weekend, mostly sunny on Saturday with a high of 28. That's your Wednesday weather right here on Zeb at the Ranch.
Very, very well done. Thank you, Gina. And the weather brought to you this hour, very comprehensive weather forecast, brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design at 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. Really good, folks. I want to say something. I had a lot of calls and emails. And I want to say this. Yesterday we went off the air in the final segment, a very important segment, with Lavoy Finicum of Arizona that was up at the protest in Burns, Oregon. Now, we did have numerous calls regarding what had they missed, and I tried to fill in most of the people that I talked to, and I've sent emails back to some. I am sorry that we were off the air, and I'm sorry that it was a very, very important segment that was missed, and I understand that it was accidental. but we certainly hope it does not happen again. And I appreciate all your calls, your emails, etc. Thank you. I know it was very interesting, and you wanted to hear the end of what was being said by Lavoy Finicum, and I'm sorry. It just, we went off the air, and we're going to try to get him back on again this next week. However, we do have a person coming on tomorrow morning by the name of Melissa Quinn. And she also is up there, and we're going to find out more. And she's going to be on at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Okay. Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley, and another great location at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. Oh, my. You go in, you sit down, and the people are so nice, and they hand you a menu, and you just start drooling. You can't help it. You'll start drooling because everything looks so delicious, and it is. Please stop in, whether you're there for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or late at night, whatever. I'm telling you, the menu items are fantabulous. You're going to love it. Denny's Restaurant, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch, and we're going to be over there for our next lunch bunch in January, the first one of this year, on Thursday, the 21st, at Denny's, 611 Overland in Burley. Don't forget, too, before we get things rolling here this morning, that Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley has all your heating and electrical needs and all your furnace filters, too. So you expect the most out of that furnace, and it looks like we're going to have another cold snap coming up this weekend. You better make sure you got a clean air filter to get the most out of your furnace. You stop into Ramsey Heating and Electric, and they're open 7:30 to 5 Monday through Friday. Call ahead. They'll have your order on the counter, 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric. All right, now it's your turn. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Now, you know, I'm going to sound very prejudiced when I say this, and I'm not going to apologize for it because I've said this so many times on my program, I do not like the man. I do not trust the man. I do not at all believe his ideology is good for America. It's been proven that it is not. I find him to be the worst leader this nation has ever had, and of course I'm speaking about Barack Hussein Obama. Yesterday, this man stood up at a podium, and I know a lot of you are going to go, oh, those were sincere tears. But I question that. He gave a 33-minute speech yesterday from the White House on gun control. And maybe if you heard it, maybe you'll disagree with this, maybe you'll agree with me. I took it as more of a lecture to me and other gun owners that we are in the wrong. We have to make some consideration as far as allowing the eroding of our Second Amendment. And I didn't care for the speech at all, especially the tears. The tears. Really? Where, and I've heard other people say this already this morning early at 4:30, where was the emotion from our president on what happened over in Paris? Where was the emotion from this president as to what happened in San Bernardino? Where was the emotion when one of our American citizens, James Foley, was beheaded by ISIS? Where is the emotion to go get the bad guys at any and all cost? Where was the emotion? And here's something else for you to consider this morning, and you can check this out, get on your computers and go to the New York Times, Washington Post, and other Eastern Seaboard newspapers that ran the headline calling the GOP, the Republican Party, the party of death. Pretty strong words, huh? Yeah. The party of death. They had some of the pictures of those that are running for the GOP nomination on the front page. And then, of course, the qualifier for the pictures was the GOP, the party of death, because of their stance on the Second Amendment and guns. This fight that's going on in our country right now, folks, and there is a fight. Don't be misled by the goofiness and the lack of journalistic ability by local papers like the Times News and others. But don't be misled. There is a fight right now that is going to carry on right up to and through the next election as to the dissolving and the erasing of our constitutional values, i.e. starting possibly with the Second Amendment and then going into the First Amendment with our freedom of speech. I'm really, really concerned about what happened yesterday. And I'm really concerned that this man, Obama, with 379 days left, is going to create a chaotic turmoil that we might never overcome. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. You know you got my dandruff already.
Well, that's good.
How can the Democrats ever call the Republicans the party of death when they kill 3,000 babies a day with their abortion crap? If anybody is the party of death, it is the Democrats. They are horribly mutilate them babies. Then they sell their body parts for a profit.
Jerry,
talk about a sick party, that's it.
Jerry, I don't mean to get you so worked up, but then on the other hand, I'm glad you are worked up because we need more Americans like you to call what it is. I absolutely, right on my cheat sheet here that I have in front of me, I have the same subject matter about how in the world they can advocate the funding of a group like Planned Parenthood and advocate that the videos that showed what happened, told what happened, and heard the speech of what happened, and they can say that abortion is fine and that the selling of body parts is fine, and they can talk about partial birth abortion, killings of babies is fine, and yet they will turn around and utilize that against the GOP with gun control and say that they're the party of death. You hit it on the head, my friend. You hit it on the head.
And I would like to make another comment. Went to see Russell yesterday. He was looking real good. Seemed to be in pretty good spirits. Everything seemed to be going fine for him.
All right, I appreciate that. God bless you, Jerry. I've got to do a commercial, but I want to let you know.
Wonderful day. May the Lord bless you and your audience. And boy, don't get me so upset this early in the morning.
Jerry, I'm not sorry that I did. We need more people to respond. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You bet. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You know, he hit it on the head. How can that party, and you know we've got Democrats living right here in this area that absolutely espouse to that a way of thinking. Oh, don't stop Planned Parenthood. Don't take away the funding. Let's let the gruesomeness and the horrors continue. And then they will turn around and throw rocks at GOP contenders, whether it's our own senators, Risch or Crapo or whomever, and say, well, the GOP is the party of death because they support the Second Amendment and guns. You've got to be kidding me. I'm beginning to really question the sanity of anybody that belongs to the Democratic Party. You have to. Don't forget Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, right behind Dr. Crane's office. And I'm going to give you the number first, 678-1191, 678-1191. Call that number if you've got aches and pains. Call that number if you've been in an accident. Call that number if you've got arthritis problems. I'm telling you what, they know all the sports medicine, all the exercises. They've got the only hydrotherapy pool in the area. Please, with the best of physical therapists serving you, helping you get back to being you. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 678-1191. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Thank you for your call.
You're welcome, sir. Hey, the the president talking about his executive order where you've got to get background checks on internet sales of guns.
Yeah.
Is a bunch of bovine droppings, because you do have to. You cannot ship a gun anywhere without it going to a dealer, and then when you pick it up, they do a background check on you, run the paperwork.
Doug, let's go to the bottom line. Let's cut to the chase here. What, if any, of what he said yesterday would have stopped the terrorist attack in San Bernardino, California? What, if any, would have happened to stop anything of somebody wanting to commit mayhem anywhere in this country if they really were bent on doing so?
The percentage that it would stop would be zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's the black market. What they need to do, my personal opinion, if you commit a crime with a gun, there's an automatic 10 or 15 years on your sentence.
Yeah.
Not negotiable, nothing. If you get parole or you get probation for your original crime, but you used a gun, you do 10 years, then you start your probation.
Yeah, now wait a minute, stop right there, though, because let's define, like your words, when you commit a crime. That's exactly the words you used, okay?
Yes.
Now, I am a little bit more than weary of getting on this program and defending homeowners and others that are trying to protect themselves and their families and their property of being looked as a guilty party for using a weapon to get rid of the bad guys. So there has to be a better and clear-cut definition of committing a crime.
Well, if you are protecting your property,
That's
your
right.
family, from a threat that you feel is going to harm you or kill you, that shouldn't be a crime.
Yeah, but Doug, you know as well as I do that right now in this country, and we've got various stories that have happened in New Jersey, various stories that have happened in Florida, various stories in Chicago, and also Indiana, other places where people that are innocent homeowners have been held subject to a lot of investigation and interrogation, and their whole lives and careers have been dismantled because they have been considered the guilty party for protecting themselves.
This is true. This is true. Yeah, but my point is, if you go rob somebody, you go, commit a crime with a gun, a crime against another person, not protecting yourself, but the lawyers will figure out the words in there where nobody will understand it, and everybody can be convicted on it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Well, let me tell you about a story that just happened in the last couple of days, okay? In New Hampshire, a grandmother is walking up the steps to her front porch. She gets up on the steps to go into her home, and a young punk tries to grab her and rob her. She yells at this young punk, "Back off or else," and he didn't. And she did. She shot him. She reached down and she was carrying the iron, and bang, she let him have it. Now, I'm all for Granny. I'm all for what she did. But you know as well as I do there's going to be a lot of scrutiny and condemnation for her protecting herself.
Yeah, and that's from people who have armed guards to protect them.
Yep, I'm afraid you're right. But see, the whole thing in our society right now, I'll give you a better example than that, and I just talked about it. The front page of many Eastern newspapers this morning is condemning and villainizing members of the GOP, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, etc., and calling the GOP the party of death because they're standing up for the Second Amendment. Now standing up for the Constitution is wrong? Are you kidding me?
Well, if they'd done abortions with guns, then the Democrats would be, they'd be wanting to stop abortion.
We live in an insane world, and if we don't start speaking up and doing something about it, Doug, look what we're going to lose.
Exactly. And I see a lot more happening than what really is. I have a gut feeling, I guess you could say. of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. I really do.
Well, we need to do one thing, and I don't care if this offends somebody or not. That's the least of my worries, is offending somebody. We need to get on our knees and beg and absolutely implore the good Lord to come back and bless us as a nation and start to turn away from these evil ways that we've accepted.
Exactly. Like the Democrat Party turning, when they had their convention, they turned against God.
Yeah.
That's, and you turn against God, he's going to turn against you.
Amen. Hey, brother, I appreciate you. I do appreciate you. Thank you, Doug. God bless. All right. Hey, don't forget Mini-Cassia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley. Zach and the rest of the crew, they've got all your lumber, all your shingles, all your roofing material. They've got all your windows with the Western windows. Got it all right there at Mini-Cassia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley. And they bring you Dr. History on Tuesdays at 10:06. Also want to remind you, too, about our dear friends at Barry Equipment and Rental. Hello, Eli. Hello, Nick. Hello, Juan. Hello, everybody. You better believe it. Twin Falls, Addison Avenue West, Jerome, South Lincoln, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. And I'll tell you what, they are getting ready to cycle out a bunch of the rental fleet. The ones that they've been renting, and they're going to be selling these. So you'd better stand by and stand alert, because you're going to save some money on a lot of their good used Coyote tractors and Bobcat equipment. So check it out today. They have all the equipment that you need to get the job done right. Barry Equipment and Rental, Twin Falls, Jerome, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Honestly, when you listen to Democrats, and I am going to turn this into a partisan issue. When you listen to Democrats, i.e. Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, I don't care who it is, or even some on the local basis, they all have this skewed thinking of liberalism and give people more and take from the rich and give to the poor, and government will wipe your nose for you and take care of you all through from birth to death. This is idiocy. And we've lost the challenges of becoming a better nation because of them. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. Happy New Year.
And the very same right back at you. What can I do for you?
Well, I don't think BO went far enough. I think that executive order should have included an immediate issuance of serial numbers to all knives and baseball bats. And if it helps you, I'm trying to tear up a little here because it makes me so mad that our children are being protected from these dangerous things.
Where are you going to draw the line? Where are they going to draw the line on what's dangerous and what they're going to take away, what they're going to stop? And you know as well as I do, the Second Amendment is under siege, but so is, and more importantly, is the First Amendment. Because we're losing our right to say things. We're losing our right to protest. We're losing our right to change this nation because we have turned into a very apathetic society.
Well, we have, but, that executive order, you can't lose sight of the fact it doesn't do anything. It's just, it's a distraction.
Yes.
Maybe this guy's just feeding his ego because the only reason he was tearing up was because he hasn't been able to dictate. And so he was tearing up because he's now finally doing something. It's not going to change anything, really. But I believe this man's ego is first and foremost in his mind that he has to satisfy. Because you look at unless there's more to come, which there surely is, it's really ridiculous.
Let me ask you something real quick, and then I got to get a commercial break in and another call. But are you or were you as cynical as I was watching that with the very theatrical response that he gave at the podium?
First of all, I don't watch him because I can't stand to look at the man. So I didn't. It's all an act. I don't believe anything he does or says. You have to believe it, but it's unbelievable that I don't watch him. I just can't stand it.
I appreciate your call as always. Thank you. Happy New Year to you.
Same to you.
Thank you, sir. Caller, I'll be right there. Please do not go away. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Don't forget Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids with the lovely Dr. Christine Pickup. I've got to get a hold of her and hopefully see her this next week, as a matter of fact. And you may be suffering some hearing loss, and you're going, what in the world? Why can't I hear this? Well, it might be due to your medications. It might be due to possibly having diabetes or high blood pressure. You'd better check it out. Call 312-0957, 312-0957, and Mount Harrison Audiology, located across from the Minidoka Hospital Emergency Room. You call them for hearing screening today. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Morning. Zeb, I have a big, huge question to ask you.
Uh-oh.
You know, they all say, take from the rich to give to the poor. Well, who are the richest? The government. Do they give anything to the poor?
No.
No way, Jose.
No.
You know, like Obama. I'd like to see how much he donates.
Well,
and Nancy Pelosi, how much does she donate? Harry Reid.
Yeah.
Big fat chance he'd give a nickel.
You know, I really appreciate your remark because it's so true, Helen, and I'm going to comment on that just a little bit more after we hang up. But God's blessings to you and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
God bless you.
See you on the 21st.
Yes, ma'am. You know, Helen's right. The take from a certain segment to give to another segment. Where is the incentive in this country to rise above possibly some of the conflagrations that you're suffering and achieve? Where's the inspiration to look up at the high bar and say, you know something? I can pull myself up by my bootstraps. I can work hard. I can achieve. I can study. I can attain that goal. You're not going to have any incentive to achieve anything or climb the ladder when you give people everything and you wipe their noses or whatever for the rest of their life. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, Zeb, you know, because we do have the right to bear arms, that ensures, and to a point, our right to freedom of speech. Because, you know, let's face it, they go hand in hand. If they could take our arms, they'd shut us up in a minute.
You know, Randy, isn't it absolutely ridiculous? I mean, with all the bad guys coming into this country, and we know they're here, the government just won't tell us the truth. Well, they've come across our borders, north and south. They've flown right into JFK in New York City. Their bad guys are here. And while they're coming in and planning their devious plots to overthrow and kill us, we have a leader that's condemning us for being gun owners to protect ourselves.
Of course, you know, and the thing of it is the people that know better know better. But you see, it's always, the game is played for the people who don't care, only pay attention a little bit. He's only fooling the fools. But it's working. It's worked. They got him reelected.
Yeah, but
it's got 47% for Hillary. Go
yep,
ahead.
That's well. You know what you just touched on, though, is really the truth. What this man is doing and has done, as have the Democrats, and quite frankly, the Republicans are playing that card too. They're buying votes. And right now, the liberals, with the liberal mindset, they're out there buying votes for the Democratic Party. They're out there buying this, saying, we're going to provide this for you. We're going to give you this. And you know what? That's the ruination of our society.
Yeah, but it's always been that way, where a third care, a third don't care, a third wonder, you know, whatever it was. And so that's the reason why the proactive third can change this. But right now, I don't know if there's enough of it.
I hate to sound negative on that, Randy, but I'm tending to lean towards you that if we don't start speaking up, banging our fists on the table and demanding, even with the threat of physically doing something, we're doomed. We can't sit back and be run over all the time.
Well, yesterday, Glenn Beck, he said something that I did not agree with at all about the guys in, Harney County over at the refugee center in Oregon. how he said they shouldn't have guns, and my attitude is, well, as long as they're peacefully assembling over there, the fact that they have guns is the reason why they're still there.
Yeah, and the other reason...
Beck has been... Sometimes he says things that lately that I don't know, forget him.
I listen to him on occasion, and I question some of the things that he says. Now, I will support always his right to say them, as it is my right to say whatever I want, and yours also. But you know, if a person has the legal right to carry a gun in this country due to the Second Amendment, why not? Why should there be a discernment against that person?
Well, there shouldn't be, and that's the thing. But again, you know, the people that are, you know, aware and are proactive, those are the ones that the government is most fearful of.
That's right.
And so, you know, I mean, face it, yesterday's executive action by Obama, all that did was spur an unbelievable spike in gun sales.
Well, not only that, my dear friend, but I understand that Smith & Wesson on the stock market yesterday had the highest production with their stocks ever in their history.
Yeah, it went up dramatically, yes.
I got to run, Randy. Thank you much. All right, thank you. Caller, I'll be right there. Don't go away, please. Don't forget Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 East Street, right on the square over in Rupert. Oh, delicious pies and rolls and cookies and bread and cinnamon rolls and everything else. And, of course, a great, great restaurant at Sophie's Chatterbox in Rupert. You stop over and see them today. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Zeb. You know, the right to keep and bear arms was included in the Bill of Rights, not to deter crime, but to deter oppressive dictatorial government.
That's right.
And so, you know, Hitler, Mao, Stalin, Lenin, Castro, other totalitarians got to be proud of Obama and what he's trying to do to disarm the citizens to protect themselves not only from criminals, but from criminal government.
Hold on a second. Whoa, Adrian.
It's interesting that gun control laws do not control crime because crimes are not committed by guns. They're committed by criminals.
Yeah, hang on just a second there. You made a really good point. There has been such a demonization of gun owners in this country by the liberal left. And you know something? What your point was about the Second Amendment was not created to get rid of the bad guys that are trying to break into your home. It was there to make sure that the citizenry could protect themselves from an oppressive government that was trying to take over. And quite frankly, people miss that fact.
Absolutely. Yeah, they really do. I had to agree. I heard what Glenn Beck had to say yesterday. My blood pressure went up several points because I just couldn't believe if they didn't have the guns there. You know, they're making a big deal about it now as far as, you know, these people are just overboard. But I can guarantee you, if they didn't have the guns, that they would have been kicked out of there already. But they're bringing national and international attention to the fact that, you know, this Agenda 21 that we've talked about how many different times, the purpose of that is to create 50% of the land area of the U.S. into a game preserve.
Yeah.
And it's all part of Agenda 21 coming from the UN, the same UN that's bringing in the refugee program. The UN's always been anti-gun because it's controlled by socialists and communists, and they want to disarm us. You know?
I agree. I agree. Adrian, always appreciate it. I got to get a break in here. Thank you so much. God bless you, man. Thanks. Thank you. Before I go any further and take another call, I've got something that's very, very serious that we need to mention here this morning. Family that I know just a little bit north of me They lost their home due to a fire this last weekend and destroyed the home of Jim Coleman. And Jim is always called into this program. We call him Doc, and I really appreciate him. Well, they need clothing, and they need furniture, and they need, quite frankly, money donations to get themselves back on top again. They virtually lost everything that they had. And a very nice gentleman by the name of Gene Brown called me yesterday, and he's kind of heading up the organizations to get everything for them, clothing, furniture, money. And please call Gene Brown at 731-9018. Or you can send donations of cash to the American Legion Post 82401 Brooks Avenue in Hazleton, 83335. And by the way, updates on what the family needs and what is needed can be found on the City of Hazleton Facebook page. But the Coleman family, very nice people. And boy, this time of the year, virtually losing everything that you have in a home fire, our heart goes out to them. So, and also you can call me for more information at 312-2976. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. My ire, let's just call it in simple language, my extreme temper against this administration goes to another level this morning in what's happening at Guantanamo Bay, Gitmo. 2 years ago, there were 656 Gitmo prisoners there. Bad guys. Really bad people. The scum on the bottom of the rain barrel. People that would cut your throat or shoot you in a heartbeat for their cause of promoting hatred and terror in the world. Now, from 656 Gitmo prisoners, this administration is now down to 90. 90 left in the cells of Gitmo. Oh, well, you asked a very obvious question. Where did the others go? Well, they've been turned loose to kill and maim and bomb again. 17 more are leaving this week. That's right. Why? Why? And now, here's something to really chew the bacon on this morning. Over 30%, that's a lot of people, 30% of that number I gave you of 656 Gitmo prisoners, 30% have gone back to kill us with Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So basically, 1 in 3 people that they turn loose is going to turn back into a junkyard dog, and they're going to bite us. My question is, why are we releasing these worthless human beings that want to do nothing more than maim, kill, and destroy? And why in the world would we even consider bringing them here to the mainland of the United States of America and putting them in our prisons so that they can start a breeding factory of hatred and killing inside the prisons? I would much rather have these worthless beings in Gitmo, surrounded by an ocean of sharks, etc., with no chance of ever breaking loose and getting away. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. We're so blessed in our country. We have been for a long time. But I think a lot of people are complacent about what we have, and they aren't going to stand up and make themselves counted. And that worries me, too.
Well, okay, in your neighborhood and in your circle of friends, now be honest about this. Don't mention any names, but be honest about it. If you were to go in with an attitude like I have on the radio about solving these problems and calling a spade and let's call out the bad guys for what they really are, how many people would turn away from you?
Well, I that my kids would even listen as much. The ones that live here would even listen as much to me because they have a bit more liberal attitude.
Uh-huh. And so
I don't know.
With that kind of a liberal attitude, though, isn't that just more reason to be concerned about where we are today in a gimme, gimme, gimme society?
Yeah, it is. And, they're not as liberal as a lot of them, but they're just a little bit more on the liberal side.
Yeah. And that's...
And it really, the whole thing concerns me because I just don't know.
Well, it's going to take more people like you and Jerry and a lot of good folks to stand up and be counted, and I always appreciate your calls. Take care of that lovely voice because you got to sing in 2 weeks.
I will.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah, it's getting better.
All right. God bless. Thank you so much. Thank you. Speaking of great voice, I had to protect mine a little bit because of this stupid cough I've had for the last month. I talked to some people yesterday that it's just kind of hanging on with them, too. I mean, they said way back at Thanksgiving they started coughing and having a sore throat and everything. Can't get rid of it. Anyway, time for our weather. And the weather is brought to you this hour by our dear friends at Mad River Laser at 502 East Street in Rupert. Oh, you know what? 3 out of 4 people remember your brand when you use promotional products. I don't care if it's like jackets or sweatshirts or baseball caps or business accessories, desk pen sets, whatever it is. And you know the number one place to go? I'm talking number one. Nobody does it better than Mad River Laser at 502 East Street in Rupert. Nicole and her family and the people working there, they are so diligent and so professional. Get over there and see them today at Mad River Laser in Rupert. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Looking out Zeb's window, here is your weather forecast. We do have a slight chance of rain and snow showers mixed for today, mostly cloudy skies and a little bit on the windy side. Out of the southeast, right around 5 miles an hour. Expect a high of 35, tonight low of 26. Now for Thursday and Friday, mostly it's going to be snowing, so be prepared for that. Make sure that you are planning your travel plans accordingly. Afternoon snow showers for Thursday, high of 32, overnight low of 26. Snow showers pretty much throughout the day on Friday, accumulations of better than an inch. Winds picking up out of the west to about 11 miles an hour, high of 29 for Friday, with an overnight low of 22. And then as we make our way into the weekend, mostly sunny on Saturday with a high of 28. That's your Wednesday weather right here on Zeb at the Ranch.
Oh, thank you. She does a great job on that weather. Thank you, Gina. Brought to you this hour by Mad River Laser at 502 East Street in Rupert. Thank you very much. Oh, my. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. It is believed, and underline that word, there's still a little sketchiness there as to really what happened, but it is believed that yesterday or the day before, North Korea tested a hydrogen bomb. This is spooky. And they showed supposedly during and right after the test that they had on the hydrogen bomb, there were seismograph testings that showed a 5.1 ripple on the charts. Okay? But now here's something to consider. After it has been perceived and believed that North Korea tested a hydrogen bomb, the United States, along with Japan, they immediately got together and they called for a emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. Oh, I would imagine that just scared that fat little leader of North Korea to death. Oh, they're going to have a security meeting. Oh, it's an emergency meeting. Oh, I'm scared. I'm going to run and hide. No, it didn't. There is no teeth in the United Nations. There are no teeth or fangs showing to the bad guys of the world. Look at Iran. Look at Iran. This stupidity that Kerry and Obama signed with an Iranian nuclear agreement that is absolutely not worth the ink out of a Bic pen. And they've already broken it. They're going about their testing, and they're going about their building and synchronization of nuclear material right now as we speak. How much you want to bet? They don't care about us or the United Nations or any sanctions or anything else. And then this little fat guy that looks like a bowling ball with legs over in North Korea, he's just kind of sticking his fat, chubby little chin out and saying, I'm going to go do whatever I want to do, and you can't stop me, na-na-na-na-na. And quite frankly, he's right. Oh, the fear this morning of knowing that some of these big shots of the United Nations are going to sit in a little room with their $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 suits and their wingtip shoes, and they're going to say, oh, what a bad thing North Korea did. And that's going to strike fear in the heart of this little dictator. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable where we are today. There's no fear because there's no fear of having somebody come down on you. It's like a great big old wasp that comes by and stings you, and then he's dumb enough to land on the wall and you nail him. Well, North Korea's the wasp, and if they're testing things like a hydrogen bomb, maybe we ought to swat them real big, real hard, once and for all. Once and for all. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I am so sick of this mamby-pamby attitude of, oh, turn the other cheek and walk away. Yeah. Don't forget your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with the very best in traction tires. And the way the weather forecast sounded by Gina just a few moments ago, I think you better check on them. They've got all the different treads to get through the snow, the ice, and the muck, and they've got all the studded tires, and they've got the tire chains. They got it all for you at all 7 locations. And you know what? They've got all the tires you need for the type of driving that you do. Everybody's driving habits are a little bit different, and they've also got the very best in brake service. Man, there is nothing worse than putting your foot on the brake and going, whoo, what a ride we're having. No, you want to stop, and that's exactly what their professionally trained technicians can do with the premium quality parts. Stop in and say hello to Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Thank you, caller. Good morning.
Good morning,
Oh, turn your radio off. Turn your radio off. Turn your radio off.
I did.
Okay, buddy, go ahead.
Hey, half these problems that we've had is because the United States has backed down on everything.
Yep.
We used to be able to go in there, these outfits, and throw in a bunch of stuff real fast and shut them down. And because of that, because we backed off of that, we're not getting it anymore.
Yep. Can't agree more.
These guys are just, we used to be able to go in there and, it's like when we went into Iraq, okay? We went in there, we hit them fast, we hit them hard, and that thing was over and done with in no time at all.
I can't argue that. Let me just give you a quick scenario to respond to. And I remember vividly the night that Obama was on the news and he stuck his chin out in a kind of a belligerent fashion, and he said that if Assad of Syria starts using chemical weapons, that is a red line that once he's crossed it, we will go in and take care of the matter. They never did.
They didn't do anything.
That's right.
That's the thing is, this administration is soft, okay? They say, they try to talk tough, but they're soft. The only people who are hard on is us, the American people. Everybody else, they just kind of, well, you know, slap their wrist and, or, you know, this is a job site, you know, what am I trying to say here?
Workplace violence.
Yeah. So these guys they need to get them out of there, period.
Yeah.
And what's irritating to me is our states representatives and stuff like that aren't doing enough to curtail the federal government at this point.
I agree.
They need to put their foot down. I don't care where the money's coming from. The state of Idaho could do well enough without the federal government. We don't need them in here. We can do it. But we're too worried about the money that the federal government's giving us that, you know,
well,
we shy away from it.
I can't.
We're giving them more than they're giving back.
I can't argue that position at all, my dear friend, because the more you take from a group, an entity, or a person, the more they own your soul. Thank you. I got to run to the news, Kilt, man. God bless you, man. Thanks so much.
See you, my friend.
All right, take care. Yeah, little by little, we're going to take them over. How? Because we're going to give them things, and then they have an obligation to be nice to us and accept our policies, and then we own them. That's what's happening. We are going to take a little break right now. You've been listening to Zeb at the Ranch. Make sure you're hearing everything. Contact Mount Harris. I hope you hear everything. Contact Mount Harrison Audiology for a hearing screening. Call 312-0957. Break for CBS News. We'll be back in 6. Don't go away. Oh, my, it's wet outside. We've had a lot of rain here this morning. Yes, sirree, Bobby. Good morning, Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you. And some of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and these great lands. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
You know, they really are. They're in the business of serving you to get rid of your garbage. Absolutely. Get on the weekly route service. Call them at 734-6969. Wonderful people serving you. They've got all the dumpsters in the various sizes. I'm going to get one, put it out in the garage, and look out, we're pitching and throwing. And I'll guarantee all you have to do is just give them a jingle. Locally owned and operated. Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. By the way, don't forget, every morning we start the program off with a great comprehensive weather forecast, and it's brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design at 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. Wonderful people serving you whatever you need to make your house a home. You know, I'm very proud of the people that are on this program, and they're not only advertisers and sponsors, but they're also my friends. And we are very, very happy to bring you every day on this show words about Joel Heward, the manager, and also his family and his staff at Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. They do so much to be involved in the community and serve you. When there's the passing of a loved one, please, I know it's a very horrific time of trying to make sure you get everything done, dot the I's, cross the T's. Let them help with the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Please call them at 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary in Rupert, serving you. Wednesdays bring a very dear friend of mine on this program. I not only value his insight as to the various issues that we talk about, but I value his friendship. Even though we both didn't have the best years in pro football, his, of course, with the Indianapolis Colts, mine with the Green Bay Packers that looked like they locked their offense up in the closet someplace and forgot where the key is. And we say good morning to Dave Bego. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Zeb. Happy New Year to you.
You know, I got to
and
tell
all your listeners.
I agree. Thank you very much for that. Dave, real quick sports note. The Green Bay Packers, I don't think are going to make it out of round one in the playoffs. They lost their offense. Where did it go?
I don't know, Zeb. I'm going to be honest with you. I only watched half of the game Sunday night and couldn't believe they lost. It's just, it seems like they've just sunk into a dark hole.
Half the game was plenty, believe me. Hey, I want to ask you this. I've been very much involved in the story as to what's going on up in Burns, Oregon, because, number one, it's not that far from me. Number two, I know a lot of the people up there. I know a lot of the ranchers in the area. And yesterday, we had one of the protesters that lives in Arizona up there in Burns supporting the protesting, and that's Mr. Lavoy Finicum. What are your thoughts about this protest? And I'd like to hear from the Midwest. What do you think's going on, and is it right? Is it wrong? Give us your viewpoint.
Well, you know, we've been trying to get more and more information on it. That's one reason I wanted to talk to you, because I wanted to get some of your behind-the-scenes knowledge on this thing. But it appears that this thing really started out to be a fairly peaceful thing, and that the Bureau of Land Management kind of turned it into a real fight. And of course, then the liberal media picked up on it and went after what they call, you know, the conservatives who were going after the federal government and our laws and that. And but I got an email this morning that said behind the scenes that actually they tried to make this a very peaceful thing, but still stand their ground by, you know, occupying the building there and the headquarters. And so I find it interesting that we get conflicting stories out here. So I'm interested in what you have to say about it.
Well, here's the thing about the Hammond family, first and foremost. They were arrested and they served a jail time that had been decreed by a judge for what they called arson on federal property. I'm giving you a very quick thumbnail sketch on this. And
I know about the background on the burn and then the controlled burn and all that stuff, which makes sense to me. I mean, you know, being from the Midwest, we've had those things too.
Yeah, but here's where I draw the line. That judge came back years afterwards and says, you know what, my decision and my decree was not strong enough and isn't going to put the fear of God into anybody, so I'm going to send them back to prison with a longer prison sentence. Now, first and foremost, my reaction was, when I called my friends back in New York City at Fox News, I said, wait a minute. How come nobody in the media is asking about double jeopardy? How can this judge have the power to do this? Why aren't more people asking questions about this? And where are these attorneys representing the Hammond family? They basically have been snowballed back into prison, and I think it's absolutely a crime, and I salute the protesters for going up and showing that they're against what's happening with BLM and public land.
Well, and that's what makes sense, and that's kind of in this letter that I got today from the gal that was out there by the name of Vicki Davis and talked to the people on site, and you know, it's to me, Zeb, it's kind of like what's going on with this administration and Obama with his gun executive order, and this is that, you know, they are intent on you know, eliminating the free market and capitalism and going to a socialistic, communistic type of society where they control everything. And you know, if you stand up for your rights, then they're going to attack you.
Let me throw this at you, and I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but I had it on the first hour. Certain Eastern Coast newspapers this morning had a headline and a group of pictures of Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, etc. And below the pictures, they had the GOP, the party of death, because of their support for the Second Amendment. How low can they go, Dave?
Zeb, and I've been trying to get this word across, ever since I've been attacked by the SEIU. This is their mode of operation. This is their Alinsky type of tactics. They go out and they blast you and rub your name in the mud in the media, and whether it's on TV or the paper or whatever, because they know that there are enough people out there that are naive enough to be brainwashed and listen to their rhetoric instead of taking the time to really look at what's going on in this country. And that's what this is all about. And I'm not surprised about it at all. In fact, I expect it, and I expect more. And with this gun law, what I caution people is if you look at the 10 points or so in the law, none of them are really extremely onerous, but I think they're just the first step to achieving gun control and confiscation down the road. And I think Americans need to be very alert to where this whole thing's going.
In my first hour, we have what we call an open forum, and I'll lay out various stories and then ask the listeners to call in. And when I mentioned this about the GOP, the party of death, on some of the headlines and front pages of newspapers, a caller called in and very well stated, mentioned that here are the Democrats, here are the liberals in our society crying against the GOP because they support the Second Amendment, but yet they, the liberals and the Democrats, support abortion and support the heinous acts that Planned Parenthood conducts every single day. Talk about hypocrisy, Dave Bego.
Well, I agree with you 100%, and I feel the same way, and your listener hit the nail on the head. And, to add to that, when you look at them and their gun control laws, and the ones you look at the cities where you have the biggest mass violence, like Chicago and New York and L.A. and other liberal cities where they have gun control laws, it doesn't do a bit of good. Our real problem, Zeb, is that they need to close the borders, number one, so illegal guns quit coming across, because, they never tell you about where these guns came from. And the second thing is, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, in talking to police agencies here in Indiana and officers and that, the biggest problem with gun violence is drugs.
Yeah.
And if we would close the borders and control the drug problem in this country, we would eliminate a lot of this problem.
But most people that are on the government give list, in other words, the wannabes and the gimmies, the people on welfare that the liberals and the Democrats are buying for their next election, they're not going to speak up. They're not going to condemn the government. They're not going to condemn Obama. They're not going to put down Hillary. They're going to sit there with their hands out and say, oh, I don't care about gun control. I don't care about the Second Amendment. I don't care about the First Amendment. Just keep feeding me. I'm hungry and my nose needs wiping.
Well, that's true, Zeb, but what I've found, and this is what I found when I fought the SEIU, is that we have to have candidates that get out in front of the common people like this and talk to them, because what you find out, Zeb, is, some of these people, they may be on some type of entitlement or welfare program, but when you sit down and you talk to them and you get to the point of the things, these people really start to wake up and they learn. And that's why we need people that are good about getting out on the ground, like Walker did in Wisconsin, and get in front of these people. And, as we move forward in this 2016 election with our candidates, they're going to have to do more of this.
Dave, I've mentioned this also in the first hour, and you're a sharp guy. You keep up on the news, and you know what's going on. You write a great blog. You're very, very informative. Explain something to me. A couple of years ago, there were 656 Gitmo prisoners at Guantanamo Bay, the worst of the worst, killers, the vermin of the earth. Today, there are only 90 left, and soon to be less than that because they're going to release another 17. And my question is, with a recidivism rate of 30% of those that have been released going back to the battlefield to kill us and others, where is the sanity in this?
Well, Zeb, it comes back, and I know people think that, again, I'm a broken record, but it's very simple. This is about one world and one world control, and you have people that believe that they know better than the rest of us, and they want a totalitarian system. And the only way to achieve it is to bring down America. And that's what this administration looks at. They believe that we got to bring down this country because we're the problem with the world. And by releasing these people, that helps towards that objective.
Well, there's got to be an end-all and a catch-all and a be-aware-all of what's going on in the world, but I don't see it. I mean, we can stand up and we can complain on this program. We can have some of our representatives and senators that are aware of what's going on. They can complain. But honestly, when you look at what's going on the liberal left with Hillary, you can take the word liar and you can exchange it with prevaricator. You can exchange it with deceiver or perjurer or cheat or falsifier. Any and all of those words. That is the type of nominee the Democrats want to run to lead this country from the Oval Office? You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, well, what I think is interesting about that, Zeb, is, you know, and there are some Democrats out there that are good, decent people, but they won't stand up and run for the nomination in their party because they know that you know, they're not far enough to the left to be successful. So they stand back and let the rest of them run over them. And we got to have backbone in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party both to stand up and turn this country around. And they can't be afraid of what people say about them or how they talk about them in the news or how they attack them psychologically, and that we've got to get people to stand up in this country, Zeb, and we got to do it soon.
Let me ask you this, Dave. I know the environment that I live in. I know the feelings and thoughts of people here in the Northwest. What about back there? What about at the country club? What about at the mall? What about at the office? What about when you go out to dinner? I mean, what are people saying? What are they believing? What are they perceiving as to what's going on?
Well, a lot of people I know, Zeb, of course, a lot of them are conservatives, but I know a lot of Democrats and liberals, too, that they are concerned about the direction of this country and that, we have leaders in Washington that are more obsessed with their own life and livelihood and, the life in Washington than they are with, getting this country back on track, and as Trump says, making it great again. And so they go along to get along. And we can't have people like that. We need people who are willing to stand up and do what's right for this country and not be afraid of the attacks on them.
What do you say, personally, if you're at a luncheon meeting or an after-hours supper, a dinner meeting with people, and all of a sudden somebody at another table or even the table you're at, we're fans of Hillary. Why? She'll get in and she'll make sure that everybody gets this. They'll have enough meat in the pot, and they'll have free homes, and they'll have free educations. What do you say to those people?
Well, I've not had that particular confrontation, although I have talked to people like that, and I tell them they need to take a step back and say, you know something, somebody has to pay for this. And all this garbage they talk about, redistribution of wealth and all that, doesn't work. What made America great is the fact that we had people that went out and became entrepreneurs and built things and built a great society, inventions that have made the world better. And we need that type of incentive in this world, not incentive for people to sit home and take money as handouts. Isn't
it the same concept, though? You just used the word somebody has to pay for this. Isn't it the same concept as to what's going on with the idiocy of $15 an hour minimum wages? Somebody is going to pay. Somebody's going to lose their job. Somebody has to pay for the absolute, I think it's crazy, increase to $15 an hour minimum pay jobs. What are your thoughts?
Well, it is, but again, this is not all about and this is the other thing that, people running for the office, Trump and, the rest of them, that they have to make a point of, that these people are out there, they're saying all these glorious sounding things, we're going to get you $15 an hour and, we're going to improve your health care, we're going to do this for you and everything. But the truth of the matter is, they don't care about these people at all. They don't care, and I wrote a blog about this several months ago. The SEIU is behind the Fight for 15, and one of their executives admitted, we really don't care if these people make $15 an hour. We just want the opportunity to unionize them. And it's the same with the Obama administration and the far left. You know, they say all these glorious things that we're going to do for you, but really what the ultimate goal is control, is to control people and make them do what they want them to do because they think they're smarter than the rest of us.
Well, and I think you'd also add as an addendum onto what you just said is to create a bigger coffer with more money to further their causes when they have to join the unions, right?
Well, that's exactly right. It's all about money for their own pockets and their political agendas. And, of course, their political agenda is in line with the current president and the Democrats, because the unions know if they lose the presidential election this year, it could be a death spiral for them. And I'm talking about the big unions. There's still unions out there, trade unions, local unions that are, you know, they do the right thing and they try to do good things. But these bigger ones, their whole emphasis and their whole goal is survival and future growth so they become a power.
One last thought here. I've only got about a minute and a half left, but I'd like you to comment on the chubby, fat little dictator over in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, sticking his chin out, flabby as it is, against the rest of the world, and it's been perceived that they went ahead and tested a hydrogen bomb, and now the United States and Japan, they're going to scare that chubby little rascal by having a UN security meeting. This isn't going to stop him. They need more power, and they need to act. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think they do. I mean, this guy, it's obvious that, you know, he's going to do what he wants to do, regardless of what other people think. And it's a serious threat to the United States, because if they have the hydrogen bomb and they have the missiles to deploy it, that could put our country in great danger. And, you know, the first responsibility of the president of this country is to protect the people of the United States, and he needs to do that.
Real quick, Dave, we've seen a changing in the percentages on the polls, and those that were losing before are losing even with wider margins now. Those that have been coming to the top are really excelling in their numbers. What are your thoughts about the possible top four of the GOP?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting. As I've said before, you know, we're still a ways away, but, you know, in the next month here, we're going to start getting into this, and we're going to find out. It's obvious that Trump still has a lot of support in areas, and Cruz is rising, and there's a lot of people behind Rubio and that. So I do think Ben Carson, I like him. But I don't know if he has the charisma to really make any moves or that. And Carly Fiorina, I don't think he does either. So it's going to be interesting to see, I think, where Trump and Cruz and Rubio, fall into line on this thing.
Let me ask you, whether it's the Christie campaign, whether it's the Bush campaign, the Rand Pauls, the Kasich, it doesn't make any difference. Isn't it about time for them to wave the white flag and say sayonara?
Well, you would think so at some point. I've met Christie, and I've not met Jeb Bush before. I've met his brother and his dad. And I have to tell you, the Bush family, the people I've met, are very nice people. And I'm sure Jeb probably is too. I just don't know that he has the staying power right now. And Christie, although he's come across a little bit better on TV, he doesn't, in person I've seen him, and he doesn't have the charisma, I think, that really draws the crowds to him and that. And I think it's probably time for him to wave the flag and move on. And so we'll see what happens on these people. But you got to understand, they're used to the limelight and to winning, and it's going to be tough for them to do that.
Excellent conversation this morning, my dear friend Dave Bego, back in Indianapolis, Indiana, author of the great books, The Devil at Our Doorstep, The Devil at My Doorstep, and his blog weekly. Thank you for being on the program again, and we will talk to you next Wednesday. Thanks, Dave. God bless.
Well, thanks, and you have a great week. And again, Happy New Year to you and all your fans.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much. I really like that, man, back in Indianapolis. One of these days, we've got to get together and sit down and share a bottle of wine and kind of talk about the world's problems in person. Got to get that done. Don't forget Let's Ride. Let's Ride at 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the world. I mean, they've got all your snow machines. They got all the clothing. They got all the goggles. They got all the gloves. They got all the accessories. They've got everything to hit the snow. Hit the snow. And listen to this. We're going to have more snow. It's coming. Maybe you better run over today, and check out the snow plows for your four-wheeler. Now, you say, oh, dear, it's so nasty. I've got to go out and work outside plowing snow. You know you're going to have fun. That's half the fun of buying a snow plow for your four-wheeler. Boom, boom, boom. You can have a great time. And don't forget they've got a great service department over there, too. Let's Ride. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the world, where the fun is sold. Really nice people. By the way, I want to mention this again. I did last hour. I'm going to do it again this hour. Terrible, terrible fire destroyed the Jim Coleman home south of Hazleton. They need our help. I mean, they lost virtually everything. And they need clothing, they need furniture, they need absolutely cash. Donations would be so much appreciated. Please call Gene Brown at 731-9018 or send your donations to the American Legion Post 82, 401 Brooks Avenue in Hazleton, 83335. And for updates on what the family needs, please go to the City of Hazleton Facebook page, if you would, please. Really nice people, and they need our help. Don't forget, too, our dear friends at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. My goodness, for all your life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. Yep, you better take care of it. Make sure everything is taken care of. Call the professionals that are really accessible and devoted to helping you. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. The number to call for an appointment, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Right now, we're going to go to the phone line, and I get a chance to talk to a man that's been on and off this program for many, many years, and I respect his opinion and his ability as the CEO of RCAF USA up in Montana, the Big Sky country. Bill Bullard, good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Good morning, Zeb, and Happy New Year to you.
Do you have a lot of snow up there in Montana this year?
Yeah, we've got here on the plains on the east side of the Rockies, we've got 6 to 8 inches still on the ground.
Boy, that global warming is going to be the death of you yet, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's supposed to get cold this weekend.
Oh, I know it. Well, listen, the very best to you, my friend, but let's talk a little bit about something that we've discussed in the past. And you know that I'm an advocate of knowing where my food comes from, because I really don't feel like supporting somebody else in a foreign country. And there's been a repeal of the COOL, the country of origin labeling law. Give us a little background as to what's happened, Bill.
Well, what happened was the multinational meat packers that did not want consumers to be able to identify USA product from amongst the various 14 different countries that we import beef from, and they first tried to defeat country of origin labeling in the court system, and our courts determined that our country of origin labeling law was constitutional, so they lost that. So then they worked with Canada and Mexico to file a complaint in Geneva at the World Trade Organization, and through this global governance, they were successful in getting a ruling that said COOL discriminated against livestock from Canada and Mexico. And so Congress shook in its boots as a result of being told by an international tribunal consisting of unappointed, unelected, and unaccountable officials. Congress simply surrendered our country of origin labeling law, and in the omnibus appropriations bill just before the first of the year, they passed a bill that effectively repealed country of origin labeling for beef and pork and for ground beef and ground pork. So that means consumers will continue to have a label on their chicken, on their lamb, on their venison, on all of their seafood, and on all of their fruits and vegetables. but Congress won't let them know where their beef or their pork came from. So this is a real outrage. Consumers should be outraged, and producers have really been duped in this entire process because they were told that country of origin labeling was costing them money. And they were told that when cattle prices were at the highest levels in history and consumers were still buying beef. And what the packers have really done now by repealing COOL is they have relegated the U.S. producer as irrelevant with respect to producers from around the world. Because a U.S. producer cannot compete against producers in Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Nicaragua, Canada, Uruguay, if a consumer can't tell the difference or tell where the meat came from that they're purchasing at the grocery store. What they've done by repealing COOL is they've given the packers unilateral control to decide where they will source the cattle with which to produce the beef to satisfy consumer demand. And it's a very unfortunate situation. We're going to spend this year winning country of origin labeling back for beef.
Bill, from my unknowledgeable standpoint, and I'm so glad that you're on the air because you can really spell out what's going on. What would have happened if, and this would have been a first, our Congress would have shown some backbone and other parts of an anatomy that would have said, hey, we're going to do it our way. If you don't like it, that's tough. What would have happened?
Well, we would simply be asserting our national sovereignty. That's exactly what should have happened. And, you know, we never had to rely upon these unelected, unaccountable officials in a foreign land to resolve our differences in the past. This is a new phenomenon. We used to engage in diplomatic relations and negotiations, country to country, and even with multiple countries, to resolve differences regarding trade. It's only been recently that Congress has essentially abrogated its responsibilities by assigning the authority to resolve any negotiating needs with this international tribunal. I mean, it's we've simply gone too far. If we'd have said 10 or 15 years ago that soon we will be dependent upon a global governing unit that will determine whether our laws are satisfactory or not, people would have laughed us out of the room. But that's exactly what is happening today. Is we have given up our sovereignty, assigned it to an international tribunal, and that tribunal essentially can second-guess our constitutionally based laws here in the United States, and Congress just quakes in their boots. It would be comical if it weren't so serious.
Well, I guess I don't understand, and I may be repeating myself, but I don't understand why we, the United States, is caving into the punk attitude and the thuggish attitude of Canada and Mexico. Why can't we just basically tell them this is the way it is, whether you like it or not?
Well, and we certainly have that authority, but we've decided that we're not going to exercise our authority, and instead we're going to acquiesce and kowtow to whatever the World Trade Organization tells us to do. And remember, the World Trade Organization is incepted by and controlled by multinational corporations, and the WTO essentially caters to them. So what we have done by giving up our sovereignty is we have provided a forum for multinational corporations to achieve their policy objectives in a foreign land where they could not get that done domestically. In other words, where the multinational corporations fail to convince Congress to pass policies that they want, they simply go over the heads of Congress and go to the WTO and have a much more favorable forum with which to achieve those same policies, and those are policies that have the effect of overriding and circumventing U.S. law.
I see.
And that's precisely what happened with our country of origin labeling law.
Okay, we have a caller with a question, and go ahead, caller, for Bill Bullard, please.
Yeah, Bill, I don't know if you heard about U.S. Senator Ben Sasse from Nebraska, a beef-producing state, got on the Senate floor and talked about how the Congress, the Senate and the House have literally become neutered And, it was just an unbelievable talk, and I didn't know if you, considering what you just said about abrogating our authority, and I'll hang up.
Bill, respond to that, please.
Well, and I'm glad that happened. I wasn't aware of that it happened. I'm glad it did because that's exactly what was going on. And the senator from Nebraska was absolutely correct. We have rendered ourselves irrelevant, our Congress irrelevant, when we allow an international tribunal to second-guess our laws. It's a terrible... it's a fundamental error that we have made as a nation, and we need to correct it.
Bill, what about the American consumer? I'm going to go back and I'm going to stand up for the American housewife and the consumers. I mean, they have every right to go to the grocery store and know that they're getting the very best product available in the form of pork or beef, and not knowing what country it came from, not knowing the sanitary conditions, not knowing about how it was raised or whatever. This is really kind of scary, isn't it?
Well, it really is, and especially now that they're working on what they call the Trans-Pacific Partnership Free Trade Agreement, the TPP. That's an agreement with 12 countries, including countries like Malaysia and Vietnam, and we really have to have concerns about the food safety regimes in countries like that. But in any event, under that agreement, the origins of beef will be whatever country slaughters the animal. That means a JBS, a corporation from Brazil that's the world's largest meat packer, can set up a plant in Vietnam, can import cattle from India or China, which India has 300 million head of cattle. China has over 100 million. And they can slaughter those animals in Vietnam, and under the TPP, they can send that anywhere in the world or anywhere within those 12 countries. So that product can come to the United States, and we don't have a country of origin labeling law, so it can set on the shelf right next to meat produced by U.S. farmers and ranchers, and consumers won't know the difference.
Oh, my.
This is all piece by piece. What is happening is that the multinational meat packers and the members of Congress that are supporting them and supporting the WTO are essentially helping the meat packers capture the supply chain away from the U.S. cattle producer and put the complete control in the hands of the corporations. And they started with cool. They're going to continue it through the TPP. And the end result is consumers will be left in the dark as to where this food is produced. And we should expect that there will be more food contamination and tainted food coming into this country as a result of this the lack of disclosure and labeling for consumers.
Absolutely. We have another call with a question. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Thank you.
Morning, Jeb. Hey, when this happened, and when I heard that it took place, I stopped buying my meat from the grocery store. And I find it my own little personal battle. I won't buy meat unless it's from a local packer, a local butcher, somebody that Zeb has advertised on his radio or anything like that. That's where I go and buy my meat. It may cost a little more, but, I know that dollar that I spend for that beef is going to go to my neighbors, my local producers, and so on and so forth. And I encourage other people to do the same. That way we know where our beef is coming from. We know it's coming from Rancher Jones up the street or up the road a couple miles who took his cows down to the butcher. We know where it comes from, and I encourage that. I'll let you go. Thank
All right.
you.
Bill, respond to that caller's concept, if you would, please.
Well, I appreciate that comment, and I don't disagree with it at all. The concern I have is at a commercial level, our entire cattle industry cannot serve consumers like some local producers are able to do. We need to expand what you just described on a national level. That means we need to reverse this process of consolidation and sourcing cattle from around the world. We need more local packers. And so that's part of our policy objective as well, is if we can't break up the monopoly that we have in the packing industry on a national level, then what we need to be doing is supporting the development of more local production through meat processing and packing industries. And that's going to be a long process. So I think what you are doing is what many people are beginning to do that are very health conscious and very conscious about where they want their food produced. And that's where labeling would have helped on a national level. It would have raised the bar for everybody, including you. But I hope more people are able to do what you're doing.
You know, Bill, let me kind of set this up a little bit and tell me if I'm right or wrong. But, you know, here we are. We're absolutely inviting a possible and potential problem in the beef industry from somebody shipping beef over from, like you said, Vietnam or wherever it might be. And you know who's really going to suffer for it? Our own producers, because when something comes out on the news that maybe hamburger is tainted or something is wrong, the finger is pointed at American ranchers and farmers, and they're damned if they do and damned if they don't.
Well, and that's exactly right. In fact, we were amazed by what some of the industry groups said when we were pushing country of origin labeling. They said, well, if it had a label on it and there's a problem, then our U.S. producers would be put to blame. Well, our producers are willing to accept responsibility for their production, and they're proud of the safety and the wholesomeness of their product, and they want that product labeled. And so that was really a red herring. It was a smokescreen, because what the meat packers really want to do is earn tremendous short-term profits by bringing risky products in from Argentina and Brazil and other countries that we talked about, and then selling them to unsuspecting consumers as if they're domestic products, and they're willing to take the risk. If there's a food safety concern that arises, they're willing to wait it out, thinking that soon it would subside and the profits they're making would just overcome any short-term losses they might experience. Producers aren't that way. Producers want to consistently produce the highest quality, safest product in the world, bar none. And they want consumers to be able to select it in the marketplace. And so we need to reverse this process where the meat packers are gaining control over the supply chain. We need the producers to have even more control over the final end product. And again, country of origin labeling was a step in the right direction because it required the meat packer to recognize the production right here in the United States of America and to track that all the way to the processing system. So our industry's headed in the wrong direction. Hopefully in 2016 we can begin to reverse it and to empower the U.S. cattle producer so that they can do what they do best, and that's produce the best beef in the world.
You know, let me ask you this, Bill, and again, my lack of knowledge on how the food chain works as far as the pricing is concerned, but I would imagine if the packers have that much power that they can make a dictate and basically force and impose any and all costs right back to the producer, so the producer's always in a no-win situation. Am I right or wrong?
Well, and their ability to do that is strengthened when the consumer can't tell one product from another.
Yeah.
In other words, if consumers were to select a USA product consistently in the marketplace, what that tells the packer is they can go to one source and one source only to satisfy that demand. They have to go to the U.S. producer. And so by taking away that element of market power, takes that away from the packers, it reduces their ability to impose costs on the producer. And the overriding reason that occurs is called competition. It's because when the U.S. producer can compete at the grocery store level with these other 14 countries that the packers are bringing beef from, then the packer's ability to impose, exorbitant costs on the producer is seriously weakened. And so what we need in our industry is much more competition, because in a competitive marketplace, the consumer's beef dollar will be allocated between the producer and the meat packer in a competitive way. In a non-competitive market like where we're headed, the meat packer decides what profits to allocate to themselves and what profits to allocate to the producer. And that's where the meat packer has the ability and the power to impose costs on producers that a competitive market simply would not have allocated to those producers.
Final thought here this morning, Bill, and then I got to let you go. But if you had the opportunity today to go in via television or radio to every home in America and address the American consuming housewife, what would you tell them to do in regards to this problem?
I tell them to call their member of Congress and ask them, why in the world can I not know where the beef I feed to my family was produced?
Okay. And do you think that will ever happen? I mean, are we so complacent and so apathetic in our society today that people just won't get involved?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer. Sometimes we see them rally behind some issues of importance to them. We need to bring this country of origin labeling issue to the level of importance that would cause them to take that kind of action. We're seeing some more and more consumers are concerned about where their food is coming from. More and more consumers are becoming aware of the risky practices of our government and encouraging products to be imported from developing countries that simply do not have the infrastructure in order to meet the high health and safety standards of the United States. We are bringing in substandard products, and we have relaxed our health and safety standards. More and more consumers are beginning to be aware of that, and they're beginning to demand these labels. That's how country of origin labeling was passed in the first time in 2002, and that's why we still have it for seafoods, fruits and vegetables, chicken, lamb, and venison. We just have to restore it for beef and pork now.
Absolutely. Very good friend of this program, CEO of RCAF USA, Bill Bullard up in Montana. Thank you, Bill. God bless. Happy New Year, and I'll have you back soon.
Same to you. Thank you, Zeb.
Thank you, sir. Very, very interesting and informative conversation with Bill Bullard of RCAF USA, and the taking away, the United States repealing the country of origin labeling. I don't understand. I don't like it. I've had people call me and say, oh, well, you just don't understand. Yes, I do. I want to know where what I'm putting in my body for food is coming from. We better get the weather in here. Oh, my goodness, and it's brought to you by our good friend Rick Mitchell and the crew over at Mountain Transmissions. Yep, right there at 504 East Main in Burley. Oh, you backed out of your yard the other day, put it in drive, and you didn't go anywhere. Well, you got transmission problems. They can fix the problem. Yes, sirree, Bob. They can repair, rebuild, and believe me, they've got a transmission tune-up special right now for just $89.95 at 504 East Main in Burley. The number to call, 678-9110. Mountain Transmissions. And now here's Gina with the weather, and then we'll take that call.
Looking out Zeb's window, here is your weather forecast. We do have a slight chance of rain and snow showers mixed for today, mostly cloudy skies and a little bit on the windy side. Out of the southeast, right around 5 miles an hour. Expect a high of 35 tonight, low of 26. Now for Thursday and Friday, mostly it's going to be snowing, so be prepared for that. Make sure that you are planning your travel plans accordingly. Afternoon snow showers for Thursday, high of 32, overnight low of 26. Snow showers pretty much throughout the day on Friday, accumulations of better than an inch. Winds picking up out of the west to about 11 miles an hour, high of 29 for Friday, with an overnight low of 22. And then as we make our way into the weekend, mostly sunny on Saturday with a high of 28. That's your Wednesday weather right here on Zeb at the Ranch.
Very well done, Gina. Thank you, and brought to you by Mountain Transmissions at 504 East Main in Burley, 678-9110. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
I listened to your last person you interviewed. He's absolutely right, because we had bought some cucumbers and we bought tomatoes for New Year's. We had to throw the cucumbers out. And the tomatoes, some of them we had to throw out. And we had the strangest piece of ham that I've ever seen in my life, and I know that stuff did not come from America. And I still got a chunk of it in my freezer.
Well, I'll tell you something. I'll stand up toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose with anybody and say that I believe we need to have, for the safety and security of the consuming American public, at least a minuscule safeguard of country of origin labeling, because right now, I mean, my goodness, the talk about slaughtering cattle over in Vietnam and shipping them here to the United States, we don't know about the sanitary conditions, we don't know anything about the background or history. I'm absolutely against what's happening.
Well, I know a little bit about what's going on in Vietnam and stuff because I've been over there. And when I was in Japan, people living off the base had to boil their food, their tomatoes and whatever vegetation they ate. And I think it's going to happen here if we're not careful.
I agree with you, and it's always good to hear from you, Tony. God bless you and Marion. Thanks always for your phone call. I appreciate it.
Okay,
thank you, sir. I agree with him. I think food safety is paramount in this country for our consuming public. I don't care if Mexico or Canada has their feelings hurt. Oh, woe is me, poor baby. And you know, we're going to elaborate a little bit more on this with a gentleman that I absolutely trust his opinion and I trust his viewpoint coming up this next hour. A gentleman that's been on this program many, many times in the past, and that's Dave Roper, a excellent farmer and livestock raiser and producer, and he's going to be on our program here in the studio this next hour, and we're going to talk about a lot of things regarding farming, agriculture, and how it affects you and me. Talking about the waters of the U.S. and talking about the EPA, talking about climate change, talking about the absolute insane animal rights groups. All of this and more coming up with Dave Roper this next hour. Let's see. Oh, my goodness. Let's see. I got to pay some bills here real quick. Red's Trading Post. Absolutely. Red's Trading Post at 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls with my good friend Ryan Horsley and his entire crew. Since 1936, I've been in historic Old Town Twin Falls, serving you with the best of new firearms from Browning, Beretta, Weatherby, Ruger, Benelli, Smith & Wesson, Winchester, all the ammunition, all the accessories. Oh, by the way, too, for the reloaders, they've got the hard-to-find powder out there. For the reloads, you stop in and see them today. Excellent staff of people at Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. Really good folks. Let's see, what else have I got? Once again, fire destroyed the home of Jim Coleman and his family south of Hazleton. They need help. They need clothing, furniture, and money. For more information, I would suggest on their needs and how you can help fill those needs, please go to the City of Hazleton Facebook page or call Gene Brown at 731-9018. Very good people. You've been listening to Zeb at the Ranch for this last hour. Make sure you're hearing everything. Contact our friends at Mount Harrison Audiology for a hearing screening. Call the number of 312-0957. Woo! We're going to take just a little break right now, kind of relax and reorganize. And like I said, Dave Roper will be in our studio for the entirety of this next hour, and calls will be welcome. He's got the answers, and I love his viewpoint, so it should be very interesting. And we're going to turn it over now to the big boys of CBS and back over to our main studio with Wheels. We'll see you in 6 minutes. Little rumbling in the background, a little verbiage there with my dear friend and guest that's going to be on the air momentarily. Stand by. Hey, we're back at Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations. Really, really serving you, along with some of our great advertisers like Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call 734-6969. Hey, by the way, before we get started with my guest, I want to remind you today's special at the Chadwick Sports Grill in Burley, 139 West Main in Burley, is smothered Salisbury steaks, topped and smothered with gravy, served with a choice of side and veggies and super salad. Smothered Salisbury steak. It's going to be delicious. Always is at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Smothered. I love that. All right, here we go. This gentleman has been a good friend of this program for quite a few years. He's been off and on coming out here to visit with us about agriculture. Nobody, in my opinion, knows more about all the different facets of what's going on in agriculture and also what's going on the political side. And I introduce and say good morning to Dave Roper from Kimberly. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. How are you this morning?
I am great. Did you have a good Christmas and New Year's?
I did. All the family was in, and that made it even better.
Now, we're both getting a little older and grayer and
long in the tooth.
Yeah. Now, what about your family? How old are the kids now?
Grandkids are great.
The grandkids?
You bet.
How many grandkids do you have?
8 of them.
Oh, my goodness. I've only got 5. You're way ahead of me.
Yep.
But I wish you well in this 2016. You know, there's so many things to talk about, and I want to get right into it. And first and foremost...
Should we dump the whole load of hay today?
There we go. We're going to dump it right in the middle of Highway 30.
So I have a question. Why on my side of the desk is there 3 stress relievers here?
Do you know Kelton Hatch?
I know him too well, actually.
Okay, well, that's why they're
Okay.
there. He has a tendency to take all the cords and tie them in knots. So I bought him these little rubber play dolls so he can play with the little horsey and the little baseball and not mess up my wires.
Okay, very good. That
so
explains
you
it.
know Kelton Hatch. I don't have to explain
I know
anything
him very
more.
well, yep.
Okay. You know, why is it at a time when most of the western states that come to mind are trying to get away from federal involvement in their states and control of their lands, etc., and it seems like we have a congressman that's welcoming more government intrusion into the state of Idaho? Tell us a little bit more about that.
You know, it's just a personal opinion as it relates to, and I love to take a week off in the summer or whenever I can and go with my boys or scouts or whoever to the beautiful country that we have in Idaho. And this past summer I was able to go in the Selway Bitterroots, go up there where there's not even trails, and just it's God's country. Yeah. And it's the best place that you can find anywhere in the world to go and enjoy catching big fish and seeing those areas. And that does not need wilderness designation to have that opportunity. You can't go in there. In fact, you can't even go there in horses because of boulder fields and such. But I really pose this to our listeners. The same question you ask is, in Simpson's proposed legislation of making more of Idaho owned by the federal government and managed by the federal government instead of the state of Idaho, taking it out of Idaho's control and not gaining control for Idaho, it's beyond me why we would want to do this. And with all the additional regulations and restrictions that are proposed on that, it's been there for centuries, and it's been open to anyone that wants to use it. And to make these restrictions, I really urge the members to get a hold of him and say, let's not do this. It isn't necessary. We already have more designated wilderness in Idaho than any other state. Why do we want to do this?
Dave, why do you think, if you were to get inside his mindset, why do you think he's been such an advocate of that philosophy?
Well, sometimes, you know, he maybe wants to be like church and maybe make a name for himself. But I think sometimes by not proposing legislation, you're more of a hero than you are by letting something like this go through. I don't think there are protections that warrant this type of land grab, if you will.
You know, Mike and I have had our differences, as you are well aware, and he hasn't been on this program for well over 2 years. The door is open if he wants to call and talk to me and come on this program. I'd welcome him to come on so we could discuss and debate these issues. But here's a congressman that is supposed to represent all of us, and he's kind of shunning me and my program, and I'm offended by that.
Well, and if you'll notice, just lately, I'm talking the last 3 weeks before recess, there were some pretty shady and differences of voting in his repertoire that went mostly to the Democrat side, and he voted actually against the other Republicans in the state of Idaho. And
That's right.
And so there's some deals being made for him to hopefully get this through, and that in my mind is bad politics. When you have to cut a deal with the devil, so to speak, to get your one claim to fame voted on, I don't think that's truly representative of the citizens of Idaho.
Okay, now he is sitting in the chair position over the EPA.
An environment, yes.
Yes, and I really haven't noticed anything that has made me want to say, attaboy, Mike.
Well, he hasn't been in the forefront. I know Senator Crapo, on the other hand, has been very adamant as far as waters of the U.S. and some of those other key issues that really do affect the lifeblood of Idaho.
We need to really break this down. Now, for the listeners out there that are not aware of some of the terminology, I'm going to stop and interrupt Dave on occasion because we need to explain to you some of the seriousness, the very devastating seriousness of what some of these proposed legislations are that could affect any and all landowners across the United States. Waters of the United States. Explain that and how it absolutely could curtail a lot of our activities.
Well, EPA by themselves, and obviously supported by environmental advocacy groups, had sued for a designation of any water stream anywhere in the United States to be designated as waters of the U.S. and be controlled and monitored by the federal government or the EPA, so that they could control any water that comes on a farm or leaves a farm and those types of situations.
Now, I got a question there. Let me interrupt you. Any water that comes onto a farm or leaves the farm. Now, is that going to be also considered in the form of like runoff from a rainstorm, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. And this also pertains to those in the cities. This also has provisions that would now include stormwater exemption, so runoff from cities and streets. A city, for example, if the residents over-fertilize their lawn and the water runs off the streets, they could be also liable because that water then would be designated as waters of the U.S., and the city then could be subject to penalties and fines based on what a homeowner decides to do on their own lawn and yard.
Okay, now, when you say subject to fines and curtailments or whatever, who is going to go around and test all of this water? And I'm sure the American taxpayer is probably going to foot the bill.
Well, absolutely. There would be a test done just like there is today with regard to discharges from municipal waste treatment facilities, and where those stormwaters enter the rivers, which is typically referred to as waters of the U.S., any river that you could, the original designation of that rule is any navigable stream. So any stream that you could take a boat in was originally considered as a water of the U.S.
But now that's changed.
It's not fully changed now, because what happened just 3 weeks ago is the courts issued, because of all the proposed litigation against the EPA, the court issued a stay in that, which means that they're not going to continue to enforce that until it gets pushed hard from the other side.
Is it out of the realm of possibility, and I know this sounds a little facetious the way I set this up, but little Johnny goes out in the backyard, digs a little pond and takes the garden hose and fills it with water and floats a couple of his little toy boats and everything, and that water goes into an irrigation ditch, and the water might not be as pure or whatever, and somebody could come along and say, we got you. Isn't that really in the realm of possibility?
It is. It is, yeah. And so what the courts and what the lawsuits that are against the federal government, EPA, has said, look, you cannot and shall not expand your authority to govern waters that have no conveyance to waters of the U.S. or waters that are of a natural event, like a storm runoff. And just think of what would be happening in Mississippi now.
Oh, my goodness.
Everyone that's house is flooded
Missouri all the way through there
would be subject to fines and litigation based on that. And it isn't that we don't have protocols in place to protect stream segments. Every stream segment in the U.S. now has a mitigation plan to help clarify that stream. It's just an egregious extension of their control of what they want to enforce on citizens of the U.S.
Are we losing, and I don't know the answer to this, so I got to ask you, are we losing state by state and local county jurisdiction, et cetera, are we losing control over our irrigation water or our waters, our lakes, our streams to the big brother attitude of the federal government?
Well, it's no question, especially with regard to what's happened in the last 8 or 10 years here in Idaho, that we have over adjudicated the water that's available, and obviously Bedke and others have now mitigated a deal. But I think that the real issue there is there's going to have to be a continued large amount of work to try to make sure there's enough water to go around, and we're going to be in a position like Nevada is, and pretty soon trying to steal water from somebody else, or California, if we aren't conscious about the efforts to first of all, to safeguard the resources that we have in a way that was designated to be there. In other words, there's water that has a prior use date and for agriculture. And I tell you, money talks now, and a lot of times we're losing that water to other uses that it wasn't destined to be for.
When you use the terminology waters or waterways of the United States, and then all of a sudden you look at the populace of the state of Idaho with 1.4 million people, a discardable amount of people as compared to greater L.A. or Las Vegas, etc., there is a fear the government could say, tough, Charlie, you're out of it, we're going to ship it elsewhere. That really could happen, couldn't it?
It could happen, but we have I believe, some key people in Idaho that do have the best interests at heart. I know Spackman, and I think even here, people that represent agriculture districts. I know here in Murtaugh we have Mr. Brown that really get it. And I think Twin Falls Canal Company, we have a great water master there. These individuals understand it, and they're in for the long haul. And I support all of those individuals, and they represent us well. And I think we just need to be aware of the what the future holds and the threats to our water.
Okay, now when you say threats and also the word future, that leads me up to the scare that I have for the 2016 elections. We're already seeing a presidency for the last 7.5 years that has absolutely been horrendous against the Constitution. And then when you listen to some of the verbiage of Hillary Clinton and what she wants to do on almost a socialistic mindset, that must scare you to death as to what might happen, not only to water, but everything in agriculture and rural living itself.
Yeah, you know, Zeb, I'm of the opinion now that I don't even know where to start to comment on that issue. It's so...
Okay, program over.
It's just, you know, why can you make any sense of the senseless? And you really can't.
Yeah.
And I don't know where to start or what sense it would make, because in my mind, and this is the way I kind of protect myself from getting angry every day, is that you really cannot make sense of the senseless.
But are you saying, though, that this might be the main weapon of the left, is to just throw so much mud at the wall that sooner or later the wall's going to give up and tip over?
You know, I guess that's...
You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. In fact, just last week when he had tear-stained faces over gun control, that was you just look at that and go, what do you say? What do you say?
He gave us a lecture.
Yeah.
He gave us a lecture. Along with the water situation here and the insidious motives of some of the people with the waters of the U.S., let's talk a little bit about the EPA in general. I fear them. I really fear them for what they can and might do to take even more power and, quite frankly, destroy the energy infrastructure of the entire United States.
Well, it's not just the energy infrastructure. It is the ability to... energy and energy uses in the United States are some of our natural resources, such as coal and oil. And the EPA, interestingly enough, when there is a more environmentally friendly system, they've actually went against that. And it really is interesting to watch the rationale that how that happens. And actually the sad thing is to see the hurt that it causes on our U.S. economy because of what happens. It's almost like they like us to be dependent on foreign fuel. Now, as it relates to their policies, you do have to have someone be very vigilant and to watch them. And as I have had many opportunities to go to their research facility in Research Triangle Park in North Carolina, I've never come away comfortable that their research is always in the best interest of Americans, and especially not in the best interest of American agriculture with regard to things like dust from fields and those things. We have to be vigilant to watch out, and there will be a day that we will have to mitigate dust from our cropping on our dusty roads, and even the county will have to step up and have to mitigate that to satisfy the rules that EPA continues to impose on agriculture. And those things are all costs then, Zeb, in the big picture, that we have to pass on to the consumer And they don't have to do these in foreign countries, and so then our products then become more expensive, and foreign products come into this country become less expensive, all because of different rules and regulations imposed upon us by EPA and other regulatory entities.
Doesn't it seem, honestly, and I'm not trying to come up with a conspiracy theory for you to buy into, but I'm sure you can see my point of view, it almost seems like it's a pre-planned destiny of ruination to destroy American agriculture and bring in more imports and get rid of the American farmer and rancher. That's almost what it seems like to me.
Well, in the whole big picture, and sometimes it's really hard to understand the whole big picture until you see the details of all that. And you talk about a conspiracy theory, and I don't know if it's really a conspiracy theory, because I think the individuals that come up with these mandates or rules or regulations, they work somewhat together, but they don't see the whole big picture. They don't really understand how agriculture works and its interrelation to society and its ability to protect the U.S. And what I mean by protecting is to have enough food and fiber to sustain us without dependent on other people. And there is a part of it that you see that they want us to all eat grass and corn and not have livestock. And so there's a different front, there's a different agenda with most of these groups that do target agriculture. And as it relates to science to help us be better in producing crops with less water, I'm all for those things because it makes us more efficient. But when there's written rules by McDonald's, it says I have to raise sows outside in Idaho in the last 3 weeks, when it takes 3 times the amount of feed and it takes 4 times the amount of straw and almost an overuse of resources that could be utilized.
Why would there be a dictate like that?
Because it's the animal rights activists who have sabotaged McDonald's and all the fast food chains to
into
say
thinking
that it's better for the animals to be free range. It's better for them to not be thinking that. And these people come up with these rules have never raised a pig or a chicken or a duck.
So has this been a mandate or a dictate that you do this?
Well, it comes through the market access and the animal rights groups.
Oh my goodness!
Just like EPA. Now these are coming at a different front to animal agriculture all at the same time. They'll have rules, for example, to say the packer that I use to process the livestock that I produce says that you have to have these animals and raised in these specific conditions. You cannot, if an animal gets sick, you have to find an alternative to antibiotics. You can't give a sick animal a shot. You cannot have a sow in a farrowing crate for more than 3 weeks. If you do, in 4 states now, you're subject to a $10,000 per instance fine.
It's safer, more sane, and more economical all the way around.
It is, but that's not what all of the fast food chains now, by force and by sabotage, have had to buy into that, or they would be picketed.
Or the free-range chicken attitude.
And so what happens then is there are only a few of these markets that are producers that can actually comply with all these things.
Do they actually send people to investigate various operations?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, you have to have an audit. I actually have to have an audit. I have an audit based on where I sell my animals, and that audit can come anytime.
So you, as a livestock producer and farmer, all your life, with all the knowledge and all the intricacies of ins and outs and what to do and what not to do, some gunsel that wears a 3-piece suit and wears wingtip shoes is coming by telling you how to run your operation.
Well, they are not the auditors. The auditors are obviously independent individuals that are hired, and there's companies there's billion-dollar companies that all they do is hired by McDonald's and Burger King and these other entities to do on-farm audits and on-farm assessments. And
this is Gestapo.
Well, it's what it is.
Yeah, it is. But now, go from that point, and how much worse is it going to get if we don't stand up?
Well, the issue is, I think the best individuals that raise livestock are the best that give them the daily care, and not dictated by somebody who is and it's not the consumer. You have to understand, it's the leftist individuals. Their deep-rooted agenda is to stop eating meat or to make the costs associated with that. So every time we have either an environmental rule or you have an animal welfare rule, the costs associated with that are increased to the consumer, and the advantage to the livestock are basically not increased. There's no real advantage. It's like the organic rule. Organic farming costs a lot more, you're less productive.
Absolutely.
And that's the best way I can explain that. But and it's also known that organic isn't any better.
That's right.
Scientifically proven, it isn't any better.
Let me ask you this real quick, Dave, and I've got a hard break coming up in about 2 minutes, but what about where we are today? I mean, I've been right on the firing line with the animal rights groups because of the horse and rodeo business that I'm associated with. And boy, it's got a little testy with these groups. Then they seem to back off a little bit. Now they're making another resurgence. Where are we at right now in worrying about where these people and all their big money is going to go?
Well, they have a lot of big money, and I think you need to recognize that. And what they like to do is get high-profile cases, like they made a case out of a dairy not far from here, as it relates to animal welfare. And in some instances, there is animal abuse, and we need to be vigilant as an industry to make sure that doesn't happen. Because I can tell you, if somebody abuses one of my animals, that animal, number one, is not productive.
That's right.
And number two, I'm upset, and that person is terminated from their employment.
Absolutely.
That's just the rule that we have. We have ethics, and now not only do we have animal welfare practices, we have codes that anyone that works for me, they sign on to say they will treat the animals with this respect, they treat the environment with this respect, and we have a list of safeguards and protocols just so that I can feel good and know that we have a game plan that we adhere to make sure that we feel confident in what we do as farmers.
But with everything that you do on the plus side, there are still those, whether it's with the HSUS or whatever, that are going to be out there trying to increase the numbers of people they're going to try to run out of business. They're going to be going after the little 4-H'er showing a steer. They're going to be going after the man that is out riding a horse or roping a steer or in a cutting pen. They're going after that.
Absolutely. And that's, I guess, in a free society, that's their privilege. And that's one of the concerns we have, is it kind of puts us at an economic advantage as we have all these rules and regulations that we have to live under, and then obviously you'll get some meat from another country, and they don't have those pressures, and they don't have the costs associated with those pressures, and then we have to allow that product to come in because it has a cost advantage.
We want to talk about that in just a little bit. Country of origin labeling. We talked to Bill Bullard just a little bit ago on this program. We've got to send it back over to our main studios right now, and we'll be back in 3 minutes with more of Dave Roper on agriculture. Stay tuned.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much. Welcome back. And you know, an hour on this program is not enough for this gentleman and I to sit here and talk about agriculture. He knows and can tell us so much, and I appreciate it. Dave Roper from Kimberly, a farmer and livestock producer. Dave, we talked a little bit about animal rights groups and their insidious employment of trying to do away with any and all use of animals. But it goes a lot further than that. We've got problems in all aspects of agriculture where it seems like everybody is ready to light a fuse and blow off a bomb to get rid of American agriculture, whether it's crop production, whether it's animal production, whether it's the use of water. Boy, it just seems like there's a never-ending fight. And then, to top it all off, we have people that are now saying, oh, climate change, we're burning up. Why, we've got to stop doing this, that, or the other for the sake of future generations. Our own Times News did a 5 or 6 segment production of climate change, and they've made the rest of us feel like we're bigots and hate mongers because we don't sign on to it. What's the matter with me, Dave?
Isn't that amazing? And really, one of the good reasons I have to discontinue my subscription annually for the Times News. I mean, to me, it was like they could not think for themselves.
Amen.
And they had to stoop so low as to try to insult our intellect to think that there's actually that climate change is a real issue.
Yeah.
I can tell them, if they would study history and look back for 300 years, and then look back for 500 years, and then in the thousands of years, they will find that climate will change when it wants to, and we have little or no effect on it.
Let me just throw this in. I just happened to have this available this morning from a good friend of mine, Andrew Follett, with the Daily Caller back in Washington, D.C., on a study about global warming and some of the so-called experts that they've interviewed. Even environmentalists, listen to this very carefully, like Executive Director of Greenpeace, Ann Leonard, has agreed that climate change is way, way exaggerated. And for the cost of $41 billion, let me say that again, audience, $41 billion a year, for what Obama wants to implement, it will lower the temperature possibly,
it will not.
0.019 of 1%. It's not even recognizable. That's the idiocy of the Times News and their segments on climate change.
And then to think of the contributions with all the regulations that the EPA has on all of the United States, the concerns the difference that we can make has not even a drop in a bucket.
Negligible.
Of what the rest of the world, like China, where we buy all the goods and services. This is how ludicrous this is. We buy all their goods and services at the demise of the American businesses, and they can pollute. And we're held to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And then this wonderful meeting they had in Paris just a few weeks ago, they finally think that they're going to have some control on that.
Dave, let me interrupt you there and ask you this. And you're a sharp guy. You've been all over the United States and the world speaking for agriculture. How could the supposedly 140 leaders of these countries get together and discuss climate change 1 week after the devastating terrorist activities in Paris? And they had supposedly our president, had the gall, the unmitigated gall, to come out and say right after that Paris meeting that climate change was the biggest threat to mankind.
You can't make sense of the senseless. That's going to be my motto today as it relates to this administration.
Amen.
You just can't. And you know what? You would just go mad trying to, Zeb, because there isn't an answer. Something that's so stupid like that, and the way that this administration goes forward, there really isn't an answer. How do you explain something stupid? Or how do you explain something that, say, for example, you did this when you had kids. Your kid does something really stupid, and you say, why did you do that? What does your kid say to you?
Well,
they don't have an answer.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So they can't explain it. How would you expect the administration to explain some of the stuff?
But why did we, as a society, accept the ridiculousness of man-caused climate change? There's only one being with a hand on the thermostat, and that's the good Lord above. Weather is cyclical. Weather conditions are cyclical and have been through mankind. You know, I used this analogy on the program the other day. Have you ever watched the movie White Christmas? Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney. Yeah. You have, haven't you? Mm-hmm. There is a segment of that movie when they're talking about the general of the Army that bought the ski area in Vermont. And this movie was produced in 1947, I believe. And they're talking about in Vermont, and at Christmas time, the temperatures were 68 degrees. In other words, I know this is a fictitious movie, but it's not anything new that weather is cyclical and warms and it gets colder. That's my point.
El Nino and El Nina, that's the storms that's going on right now as well.
There you
go. But to say that there aren't concerns with regard to the environment, I want to tell you that we are adhering to many, many regulations to protect our environment. We are controlling degradation, pollution issues. We have rules in place that mitigate pollution. We have rules in place to clean water. And because we, especially in agriculture, are stewards of the land. Now, based on the things that we can control, we do a good job because we want to preserve the environment for future generations. We want to be able to produce livestock and food, and we take care of the things that are necessary. And we do a good job. But to have other people that live in town and drive cars that pollute and whatever they want to do and say, we want to have offsets, and we want to propose offsets on agriculture so that we can continue to pollute. Those things are dead wrong. And I wanted your listeners to know that in agriculture, we want to continue to be good stewards of the environment, but not have our ability to perform reduced just so that somebody else can pollute. I think that's wrong.
But this country, the west of the Rockies, west of the Mississippi, has been founded upon a strong, strong agricultural base. And when you look at the San Joaquin Valley in California, it's the breadbasket to the world. Magic Valley, Idaho, breadbasket to literally the world. And to see a depletion or a cutback of agriculture production because of these absolutely silly and frivolous rules and regulations and concepts, it really scares me.
Well, and let me put a little bit of science to what you're saying there. And what I want to help the listener understand is what is the real value of American agriculture or the dirt that we're given stewardship over. And so if you look at about the value, and some people that I visit with a lot own lots of farmland in Iowa and Missouri, and that's very, very productive farmland. They grow corn and soybeans. But as you look at the return of investment on an acre of land in Iowa versus an acre of land in California, and then even an acre of land in Idaho, let me tell you, you're absolutely correct. And when you see lack of water or farmers with almond orchards in California now have asked to let those almond orchards die, okay, that is going to be a devastating thing and cause costs of production increases for the consumer, because they said this water needs to be given to people to water their lawn as opposed to these orchards. That land yields about $4,000 to $5,000 an acre.
Right.
Where an alfalfa the last 4 years, or sugar beets or potatoes in Idaho, yields about $1,500 an acre.
Right.
Or more, whereas land in Iowa and Missouri, and that land yields about $800 an acre.
Right.
So that gives you an idea of where we need to focus energy for the consumer and for the public being able to get the cheapest, most reliable, safest food in the world. And when we put that in jeopardy, then you're going to see a lot more food safety issues that you've been talking about in the past come to the surface.
Yeah, but you're saying something that we all should know, we all should understand, and the American housewife and the consumers should all appreciate. But there again, the liberal media, the left media, would never let stories like what you're saying right now be present in the NBC, CBS News at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. The word's not getting out to the consumer.
You know,
am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, I have to give my wife a little plug here, because she's kind of gone back to basics. What we were told so many years about how butter is bad for you and kill you, butter is so good for you. And you know what? My wife can't buy lard now anywhere unless it's ultra processed. In other words, it means that some of those the lipid content in it is destroyed. So now she'll go to Jensen's and she'll make sure all the back fat's taken off, and she'll render it herself, and she loves it, and it's good for you, and it's great, and it makes good pies, and we're actually quite healthy.
You know, and
we haven't died yet.
You know, Dave, you know this. We've talked about it in past programs. But when you get the Hollywood set, the Meryl Streeps and others that come out, and remember Meryl was the one that said Alar on apples. Oh, it's going to kill the world. Don't let your kids have apples. She was dead wrong. Dead wrong. But yet the American consuming public, they look at these people, they hold these actors in high regard, and they basically got the IQ of a bicycle spoke. Why are we letting this happen? We're not being able to get the word out. Don't anybody get on my program and say, well, we've got to have better education and better communication. You've got to have sources to get it out, and the major networks will not touch it.
And it's not accurate.
True.
That needs to be the point in case altogether. Do you know, the simple science says, and I'm a milk drinker, have always been a milk drinker, but as you drink 2% milk, you need to supplement your diet. If you drink 2% milk. If you drink whole milk, you don't need to supplement your diet. And there's so many things out there that the consuming public have just accepted as gospel truth.
That's right.
And it isn't. And it's hard for someone to change their mind after they think, oh, I've been taught this for years and years, and all of a sudden it's wrong.
Yeah.
How could that happen?
But I got to go do a weather forecast here, but I want you to give me a real kind of a final answer on this. What can we do involving agriculture? I don't care if it's the beef industry, the dairy industry, the pork industry, the tomato industry, or whatever. What can we do to turn things around so people understand and appreciate agriculture? You're not answering me.
I believe that that awareness that we have a wholesome and safe product will turn that around. And I think as we recognize that we have the safest, most economical products produced anywhere in the world, that our consumer public will gain the trust necessary. I think that because of the price disparity that we have, because our products are going to cost more money than foreign products, I think you're going to have some food safety issues with foreign products. And I think because of the network of safety that we have in America, people are going to gain some more trust in the products that are raised here.
I agree. Dave Roper, very, very well known in ag circles for knowing of what he speaks. Stand by. We're going to have more, but right now it's time for the weather, brought to you by Scarrows Meats. And they're located at 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657. They guarantee everything they sell. Don't forget, they've got a harvest bundle package right now. 32 pounds of meat, beef, pork, chicken, just $79 plus tax. It is delicious. Scarrows Meats over in Jerome. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Looking out Zeb's window, here is your weather forecast. We do have a slight chance of rain and snow showers mixed for today, mostly cloudy skies and a little bit on the windy side. Out of the southeast, right around 5 miles an hour. Expect a high of 35, tonight low of 26. Now for Thursday and Friday, mostly it's going to be snowing, so be prepared for that. Make sure that you are planning your travel plans accordingly. Afternoon snow showers for Thursday, high of 32, overnight low of 26. Snow showers pretty much throughout the day on Friday. Accumulations of better than an inch. Winds picking up out of the west to about 11 miles an hour. High of 29 for Friday with an overnight low of 22. And then as we make our way into the weekend, mostly sunny on Saturday with a high of 28. That's your Wednesday weather right here on Zeb at the Ranch.
Boy, she does a great job with the weather. Gina, thank you. And we're talking about Scarrows Meats, bringing you the weather at 331 North Road, Jerome. Delicious. 324-7657. You get a hold of them today. Dave, unfortunately, we're almost out of time this morning, but what are some of the national issues that you want to give to my audience this morning so they can be more aware of what's going on?
Well, I just like to review just a few items that are coming up on the horizon and challenges to agriculture. First of all, is we have a lot of farm commodity groups in the Magic Valley, and recently a challenge to that is the Capra-Volstead Act. There are significant challenges against that, and what that is for your listeners that may not know, is way back in 1922, there's associations of agriculture products that could cooperate together. We have a lot of those in the Magic Valley, and as you cooperate together, then you're allowed some exemption from antitrust laws, which means that you could have collective bargaining for the products that you as a group produce, like dairy cooperatives and sugar beet industries, for example. There are significant challenges to the Capra-Volstead Act that I think people that are a part of those cooperatives need to be aware of, that there are significant challenges today to look at those things. Right now, the Farm Bill obviously is not posed to take, the debate will start in 2017. There are things that were not pleasant in the last Farm Bill that need to have a discussion as it relates to equity in the Farm Bill for all farmers across the United States. And I think that's going to be fleshed out more as we move forward, especially with the significance of the cost of the Farm Bill. Obviously, one of the political things that need to be talked about is immigration reform, and not just with the issues with people that are displaced from their home because of terrorists, but also the idea that we have undocumented illegal immigrants into the United States. You need to know that agriculture, we need the opportunity to utilize seasonal workers, and we need that done in a transparent, open way that we can have access to those, and they need to be documented. And we, as farm owners, we're liable if they're not. And so we fully support that. We need that to happen.
The system that used to be in place with the, correct me if I'm wrong, the HB system years ago, why wasn't that re-implemented? Why was the funding stopped on that? It made more sense by far than what's happening now. Does it not?
Well, let me tell you what I believe is the reason that was kind of phased out. And this is one I think you need to watch more than anything else. It's called the card check. This card check is a system that is proposed by your friend, Zeb, the AFL-CIO.
Oh, go easy on the friend.
Okay. They want foreign workers to be guaranteed a majority of collective unit membership. In other words, they want all the foreign workers that come to the United States to be card-carrying members of a union.
Right.
That is something that's totally problematic, not just for farm laborers, but for all of laborers in the United States. This is something that they are trying to push through the Congress and we in agriculture. Even if you're not in agriculture, employees need to have the right to be able to choose whether or not they want to be part of a union or not. This card check system, which they're trying to force on migrant workers,
and it's not only migrants that they're forcing.
Absolutely, they want that forced on everyone so that they can promote themselves and they can make money.
That's right.
And so don't think that that's something in the defense of the defenseless. This is something to make unions bigger. Why then would it be not supported by the AFL-CIO?
Bigger, more powerful,
Bad.
and absolutely give more votes to the left.
This is one of the things that's going to try to be snuck in on us in the near future, maybe even before the election. And I think people need to be up to speed with what's going on and its disruptive influence in labor
Absolutely.
in the United States.
Absolutely.
A big bad problem.
Dave, I've only got a couple of minutes left, and I've got to do a quick commercial break here. But when we come back after this break, tell my listeners, what they can possibly do or get involved in or be more aware of on a local basis. I want to have you end the program on that note if we can.
Okay.
Hey, by the way, don't forget your 7 Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. 7 of the most dedicated folks to make sure that you have safe driving this winter. With all the traction tires, all the different tread designs, all the studded snow tires, all the tire chains, they've got it all for you. You stop in and see them today. And don't forget, too, for all your front end alignments, shocks and struts, brake service, the best, and batteries. They absolutely know what they're doing to make sure that you're driving safely. Stop in and see them today. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome. Of course, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and my buddy Randy on Overland in Burley. The best. That's not brag. That's a fact. The Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Dave?
They do a great job for me.
They
do
absolutely
a great job.
me too.
David Allen's one of the best workers that Les Schwab has.
In Twin Falls on Blue Lakes.
He is a great man.
Yep.
I would just suggest to your listeners that one of the things they can do is be aware of the issues and concerns, and they can speak from their own minds. And I'm not trying to dissuade somebody from their opinion, but one of the things that I think that we need to be cognizant of is the idea that those outside of agriculture want to dictate how you perform and how you act. Namely, I would oppose people who want to litigate the way that I raise the livestock on my farm. They want to outlaw things like individual houses for sows, ban production products such as my ability to care for sick or treated animals with antibiotics, and how that my employees, they want to dictate every single step of the way how they know better than I how to take care of the pigs and the beef that are raised on my farm. Mm-hmm. That's my livelihood. That's what I do to make a living.
What are let me ask you the restrictions. Pardon me for interrupting, but I think the public should know. When you said they don't want you to use any antibiotics whatsoever, what do you do, and what are your limitations now as to how you can treat a sick animal and try to get them back to health?
So just to help you understand, I've been around livestock, especially pigs, all my life, and I have a pretty good idea, whether by temperature or by just how a sow acts, what she needs. Yeah. And actually, I respect the local veterinarians. I have a great working relationship with them. But quite often, because there's not many pigs in the valley, they'll call me up and say, hey, I've got this other client. How do you treat this? How do you take care of it? And all of a sudden, what I suggest to them, that's what they implement. So what the rule is now is that I cannot give a vaccine unless it's administered to and overseen by a veterinarian. I cannot give an antibiotic, and that's the new rule with beef and pork and everywhere else. I cannot give it unless I pay for the vet to come out and say, yep, sure enough, either I'll administer this or you administer that. Now that's not only in the, it's called VFD, which means Verified Feed Directive. In other words, I can't feed anything, any like a bacitration or anything to help stimulate growth promotant, which is a natural product. I can't do that unless I have approval or a prescription from a veterinarian.
But what you're saying is also taking away from the black in your bottom line economically, because every time now you have to call a vet, whereas you could have done it yourself. That's taking away from your profit.
Absolutely. And those costs, Zeb, we don't have a control.
That's right.
Those costs go on to the consumer. And the part that I worry about then is the consumer then says, well, because it costs so much, I'm going to buy my beef from Mexico, or I'm going to buy my ham from Italy or somewhere else. And in reality, then we have a more narrow window to justify the safeguards, because they are not raised or produced with all the mandates and all the requirements that food safety has here in the United States.
Absolutely.
They're not the same worldwide.
Dave, quickly, I've only got a minute. You've been in agriculture all your life. Your family's been in agriculture. Are you optimistic for the future if we can tweak some of these negativities?
I'm totally optimistic because it's my livelihood. The thing that I fear for is the youth trying to get involved in agriculture. It's very difficult for a father-son team to get involved in agriculture, just simply because the margins in the next couple of years are going to be so limiting. The cost of equipment, the cost of land are so high, and the cost that you get for your products are depressed right now. It's not going to be a pretty picture in the next couple of years, Eb. Yeah. I want to tell you, there's going to be some issues with regard to economically sustainable in agriculture in the next few years that we need to be aware of.
Dave Roper, a dear friend and an expert when it comes to farming and livestock production. I appreciate him so much for being on the program. Come back.
Thank you, Zeb, and I appreciate all you do to support and promote agriculture in our community.
Thank you very much. You've been listening to Zeb at the Ranch. Make sure that you're hearing everything. Contact Mount Harrison Audiology for a hearing screening. Call them at 312-0957. We're going to wrap it up for today. Saddle the horse and ride away till tomorrow morning at 8:06. We'll be back at a great Thursday plan. Lots of interesting guests. Don't you miss it. And remember, the way things were are the way things ought to be. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.